All right, gonna call the meeting to order. Supervisor Yankee asked to be excused. Who else have we got?
Joanne's in Portugal or whatever.
Is it Portugal this time? No, she's no longer on. So, okay, everybody's accounted for that isn't here. I would look for a motion then to approve the October 14th agenda.
Move to approve the agenda. as published.
Supervisor Romden, second by Supervisor Plotkin. Is there any discussion? Yes.
I had a citizen call me asking why on the executive board committee that there isn't a line item for public input, citizens input. She told me that it used to be on and it got taken off.
When was it taken off? Do you know, Jeremy?
I don't know, I mean,
It
it
can
certainly.
easily be added back
be
on.
back on, yeah.
Would you like me to add it at number, move it down, make it number 5 and move everything down?
Be on for next month, starting next month is fine.
I'll happily make that adjustment.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I never.
I said, I can't answer either. I'm just kind of new on this committee, so.
Yeah, it typically is, at all of the committee meetings, I guess. I don't know why. Well, we'll add it back on.
Thank you.
Easy enough, easily done. Okay, approval of, we have a motion, second, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Approval of the September 10th, 2024 minutes. Is there a motion? Supervisor Baker, is there a second? Supervisor Robden, any discussion of that motion? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Now we go to number 5, consider changes to personnel policy, chapter 4, wage scale modification and position reclassification. You have that before you, I believe. Hopefully you have it. So the adjustments are fairly straightforward. Is there a motion for that before we move it to discussion?
I make a motion to approve the proposed wage scale modification and position reclassifications as proposed.
There's a second? Second. Second by Supervisor Augustine. Discussion.
Good evening, does everyone have it in front of them on paper, otherwise I have a couple extra
I
copies?
think we all have it here,
Okay, great,
in one form or another.
so as we recall, going back to last month, there was, we brought forward a proposal to, make adjustments to the wage scale, and, feedback from the committee was we want that seen by the, standing committee first. Totally understandable. This change in front of you would essentially adjust the policy so that going forward, the policy lines up with that expectation. If we look at the bottom of page 5, this is all, drawn from the existing personnel policy. The bottom of the first page, number 5, makes a change that instead of the administrator shall make a recommendation to the executive committee, it now says may advance a recommendation to the standing committee or may terminate the process. Because in the old language, the administrator had to advance the process. And then going forward from there, number 6 says the standing committee will make a decision on whether or not to support the recommendation. If it's supported, it would advance to this committee, the executive. And then finally, the executive committee can then make a decision whether or not to support the recommended changes or could choose to advance to the county board with no recommendation. And then that is all under the letter M wage scale modification. And then very similar changes are replicated for letter N position reclassification policy. So essentially, the changes are adding the policy change to start everything with the standing committee. And then allowing the administrator the ability to shut down the process if something is not supported. And finally, that the county board makes the final decision.
I think it makes it a lot clearer how the process should move.
Well, this reflects how the process has been, how it's been getting done.
Yeah.
Question was asked, and it's a good question. M2, the following materials shall be collected to assist in the review of the wage scale modification request, and you go down to point B, copies of job descriptions of similar positions in other counties for external comparable analysis. So basically, then it goes on, basically getting the pay plan, the last line, getting the pay plan for other counties. Who collects that? I don't think it's not specified, obviously, and I don't think it's always been, I don't think it's been uniform. So how is that done?
It will be done on a request basis, so I certainly, as the chief, personnel leader for the county, could pull those together from neighboring counties. We have a few of those
And point
already.
E, I actually was including point E without saying it. Sorry about that, but wage scales included in that.
Mhm. Yep, so the pay plans and wage scales, because they're all public information, can be gotten just by request. So like I said, we have a couple of those, but not all of those on file right now. So I could get those and provide them maybe if it's an informational request or.
So are you typically the person that contacts these other counties and gets that information, or is it the department head, or how does that work?
In the policy right now, it doesn't specifically say who,
Right.
if the department head or myself would follow up on that.
Okay, and yeah, I have one question. Supervisor Coffey.
One question, I think it's good. The only question I have is, should this be done at a certain time of the year prior to the budget?
Or have Jeremy just do it as a policy every couple of years and not have the employee get. The worst case is the employees spend an inordinate amount of time
Well, I mean,
checking this stuff out, trying to figure out. how
we've
they
had
get
it,
it.
we've had it in June, July and
We've had
whatever,
more of these
you
in
know,
years on the
coming up.
board.
And so, planning for budget for the following year is probably the proper time.
If you look at the number of these that we've had in your time, my time on the board, I think we've reached a majority of them. The positions almost, it feels like, that have been reviewed in between.
I think there's something in the current policy somewhere that says that the requests have to be done in the month of June. Somewhere in there, I thought I remember that.
That'd be interesting.
Why June?
Because we were trying to get it before the budget. I
It's gonna
see.
take a while to go all the way through. I mean, the request to,
I seem to think
Research
that
it.
there was something when we did a pay plan review, I don't know if there was discussion. I don't know if it was put in anywhere, but I know that there was discussion.
I know it
Why
was.
there was a
I think
desire,
everything was changed.
there was a desire to get away from the constant request. For adjustments.
to that end, when you change the language under the administrator, may advance or terminate the process. What would be cause for terminating the process?
If there's not supporting any of the external factors of the similar counties positions with, if the wage scale already says we're at the top or things like that. I wanted it to have some discretion in whether or not it needed to come to committee in order to have a sound decision.
Are there any other reasons like frequency of the request or,
I suppose,
it's just come around again too soon? But that's not articulate, it's not laid out here in any way.
sure. Yeah, I
I'm just
mean,
curious because it does seem open-ended. You could just choose like, oh, no, I'm not gonna deal with this. I
it's
got
a,
too many this month.
it's a rational, yes, it's a rational question. It could be other reasons too. I guess, I would think that the committee wants to rest some of that authority with the administrator unless,
Right.
if you wanted to change it the other way and.
Why?
have
No, I'd rather have it this way. I just was curious what you would.
Well, it can't, the administrator, couldn't bring any more of these forward than is done currently. I mean, it could only, by changing it this way, it could only help to reduce the number.
I'm not against it. I was just wondering, because it does seem rather
Because now,
ambiguous.
because the way it is,
You could just say, I'm not doing it this way.
but the way it's been in the past, every single request that gets made goes forward. And it does get to be pretty frequent, it seems. But yeah, it has been, it is completely arbitrary. in a sense, because the board hired an administrator to oversee these things, and if you.
I didn't realize it was I didn't realize June was the magic number.
I don't know if it, I just remember June for some reason.
I don't know, I know there was discussion, I don't remember if it was actually, put into law or not.
Well, if Tom is right, that it's June, and somebody comes in to request it for June and it's approved, does it not take effect until January?
Well, that was the idea, and I don't know if it was adopted, but I know there was a lot of discussion, and the idea was, you'd start discussing it in June so that it got into the budget. And so that you wouldn't have those adjustments in between, because these come forward.
But
Not
would it
every
also
month,
be the
but,
case that you could have 30 of them, 40 of them in June?
It could work that way. I mean, I think. For the most part, our department heads and our staff are reasonable with what they expect, what they ask us to look at. I wouldn't expect a deluge of, everybody and their brother asking for that. It's plausible, and if the committee would prefer that that June deadline either is included now or put in for the future, you can definitely direct me to do that today as part of the motion to approve, and I can plug that in.
I think we can need to use your discretion though too, if it's year after year, same committee or same department, we're gonna know where to draw some. I mean, we do have the pay scale, we know where our averages are compared.
That is another question, is when did we last review the pay scale? And then we never did set a repetition, we never did set a cycle for how frequently that should be done. I mean, it's not like, union negotiations, they come up at a, set time, pay scale review. I know it's been at least 2 years, right? I mean,
I
how
would know.
frequently,
I thought we did one back when I was on the board.
that's
Yeah.
so it was 4 years ago, then, okay. Yes, you were involved, because that was the last time.
Right, okay.
So I guess maybe it's been 4 years, I mean, there probably should be some sort of a cycle, some sort of a schedule of when that pay scale is reviewed.
Yeah, so we don't get so far skewed from.
So, yeah, well, I mean, we need to know, okay, our pay scale is, pretty good, we're, kind of where we should be, or, no, we're off on some things. I know this probably hasn't been done again since the last 4 years. Huh? Highway did. But we probably haven't done it in so long, because I remember it's a fairly arduous kind of a thing. I mean, it takes a certain amount of,
Is it not pretty much what they're talking about here, though? Is to get the job description.
Yep.
The wage scale, and then, but you're doing it across the board for all positions in the county.
That's the distinction, right, is that this is for, one-off, like at the position level, or, shifting group of positions within the pay plan. A broad pay plan review is a much bigger
like,
process.
it was a lot of work for the administrator, and it was a lot of work for the subcommittee members. It was a lot of work for the administrator to collect that information. It was a lot of work for the subcommittee members to review it. But then again, I guess that's what we all did, in a sense, kind of sign on for that, and it probably is important, and it probably is time.
I think it should be at least every 5 years.
I don't know if we had
Didn't we look at hiring an outside consultant? And we decided not to
Oh,
spend
yeah,
our
we
money?
decided not to do that.
You voted that down. Was that only like 2 years? That wasn't that long ago.
Hal Scott pushed it, I know he wanted that, but the problem is, we get an outside.
But I'm not saying I'm in favor.
No, we get an outside organization, we pay them a lot of money, and they come in and tell us that we're low compared to Milwaukee County, Doak County, and Outagamie. And they come back and tell us that we should be increasing at a level that we can't sustain. And so we felt that it would be better to do it on our own within the county. And it has been a while. I don't know if it's time to do it again or not. Yes, that's That's the question. I mean, there really shouldn't be a lot of variance, but then, you know, it's just to verify that we are where we should be, or there are some places where, you know, we're way too high and we should lower them, or, there's some where we're too low and should raise them.
Is it reasonable to send this back and have Jeremy modify it with research whether there is a day or a month in the year? When this, in the policy somewhere today that says when this should happen, these individual requests?
I'm looking at the personnel policy and there's no date in there, either on the pay plan policy, the wage scale modification policy, or the reclassification policy. There's no dates in any of those.
It seems like oftentimes these come up when there is a vacant position. And we're looking to fill.
But then you would do it, on qualifications and where that pay scale starts, correct? You know, you're not saying you gotta start them at the bottom. If they qualify to be hired, you weren't starting them on the bottom line. I guess my thing was, you know, we had people coming in May. We had some coming in February after we passed the budget.
Yeah.
So they were back in February already.
See, yeah, that's why I think it should be a month of the year. I like that idea.
There is some latitude, you're right, there is some latitude based on, you know, experience and qualification. Sure. That is contained there.
Sure.
I mean, even the sheriff's department has the ability to do that now under this current contract.
So, you know, I don't know if June is the magic number or if it's July or August, but, you know. It should be when the budget process starts, and that's what, August?
Well, it should be in the department's.
Yeah.
Updated budget for
Normally,
that year. right?
yes.
Their raises.
They should be approved before they do
Well,
the contract.
correct,
So
correct.
it should be done, it should be complete before August.
That's true. That's gonna happen.
So June is
So June is a good month.
June is a good month, that's fine. You know.
Probably a verbal thing that they talked about.
The timeline would line up pretty well to,
Yeah.
to have any requests due by, say, June 15th, then evaluated by my office and the department head.
Sure.
Then the whole committee.
I mean, it does restrict though, I mean, would there be circumstances that could come up, reasonable, circumstances where there would need to be an adjustment between, I mean, what would they
We
be?
can let it be on discretion, right?
I mean,
Like when the commissioner quit last year and the other one took on more duties. You know, they're doing more stuff. That would be a time where.
it was a temporary though, we brought that to the board.
Yeah.
Right.
But even if they put them at, you know, step 4. For 2 months or 3 months. They could still submit to be hired at that point, correct? Even if they started in April.
What would be the circumstances if you set it at June? What would be the harm in that? What would be the circumstances when there would need to be somehow at a different time? Yes, we got to.
There could always be unexpected circumstances, but I think that's something that the board's thinking about already is, you know, a good policy can't anticipate every eventuality. You can set it as this is our standard. And if there's something that does come up that's out of the blue that really needs to be looked at, we can look at that separately, you know, because it deviates from the policy.
One time I could think of is if somebody else was trying to poach one of our great employees that we don't want to
Well-
lose. So then at that time, whether it be March, you know, hey, are we gonna compensate a little more to keep them? I mean, that's just one thing I'm thinking of,
Yeah,
but
I don't know, we've got 2 department heads here. Can either of them think of I'm just trying to genuinely think of where would there be a circumstance that it couldn't be done at a set time.
I think, you know, with the flexibility built into the plan that allows for that latitude of prior service to say, hey, we're gonna accommodate for that. As long as you've got some flexibility, there really shouldn't be. I mean, we think about right now, with the sheriff's department, we have the settling of the contract, that has a cascading effect through the department that we'll have to address, compression and so on. So, you know, there are times like that, but again, that should be able to be handled in a budgeting cycle for next year. We're not gonna all of a sudden jump and say, we need to deal with this in January. We're gonna start the conversation in early 2025, with the settlement, you know, so I think that aside from some of those things that you've already given flexibility to, we should be good unless something completely comes left.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only other thing that came to mind while the sheriff and Supervisor Augustine were talking was, right now we have a draft budget that's being looked at for 2025. If we had a vacancy right now that recruitment was very challenging, couldn't fill it, we, without any other changes, we'd be set at the current salary ranges until the end of 2025. So in theory, we could have had a vacancy start in the summer of 24 and no ability to change the salary or look at compensation until 2026. So that's another scenario in which we might want that flexibility. But again, no policy is going to be able to anticipate every eventuality. And so I'd be very comfortable saying that there's, requests under these provisions need to be in the administrator's office by June 15th or
So
something.
do we want to add that into this?
I would.
So we could do this a couple of ways. We could either try to amend the motion or withdraw the motion and then have a new motion brought forward. It might be cleaner to just who made the motion.
I did,
You want to withdraw
I
the?
would withdraw the current motion.
Okay, so and the second was fine with that. Okay, so let's have a,
One more question.
sure.
Jeremy brought up this idea, or maybe you brought it up, well, can we also have the renewal or the cycle of phone working to
Yeah, I brought it up.
and I needed two, then,
And
and
do we-
one or two frequent.
Do we
It's a lot of
require,
energy.
do we put that requirement on the board then to review, to do a review of the pay scale, pay plan? And at what interval do you want to do that? And that would be a separate motion.
Want to say that'd be separate, or I understand.
That'd be a separate
Maybe- I
motion.
would say, would you want that in this?
It would have
I'm
to
just
be,
trying to make sure we don't.
it would be separate, but where would we put it most efficiently?
Right, for having heard the board's feedback on that, what I would like and recommend is, I'll do some research on existing policy if there is any, because I wasn't prepared for that question tonight, and then when it was last reviewed, then bring it back next month.
Yeah, we could just leave that till next month.
Did we look at what other companies are doing? Is that?
I can add, yeah, I can do some research on that.
Sure. If you find something, Supervisor Robin?
Section L in the current personnel policy for the county employees. Section L talks about the pay plan policy. And it says that the county has developed an 11-step pay plan and compensation for employees, goes on some other verbiage. In that area, in that paragraph somewhere, you could say that the pay plan will be reviewed every 5 years or every 3 years or whatever you want to, just add a sentence in there to
Yeah.
say how often it would be reviewed.
My personal feeling is that it's all subjective, it would be every 3 years.
You give me any number you want to make it.
Mine was all over the stretch.
Five long thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think every 3 would be a pretty reasonable cycle. Okay. So let's have a motion. That's going to approve these changes and add that they should, what number would you want that under?
Under, the pay plan policy itself is under item L, personnel manual.
Right, but we're gonna go. I'm talking about the month of June in this. Where would you like that, Jeremy? Any preference or?
Item 1 says shall make the wage scale modification. Would it be inserted? in
Yeah,
there?
request to the administrator's office in the month of June or by June or.
Would have to be within this period of time, right?
What did you
Yes.
suggest, Jeremy, to your, by June 15th?
Between dates, not, because they could make an anytime.
Yeah. We want it to be between May 15th and June 15th.
Fine with me.
Yeah, whatever.
That makes it nice and. Heidi. There you go. Okay, so was that a motion, Supervisor Baker?
Yes, that was a motion.
And second by Supervisor Coffey. So the motion is to approve the corrections or additions that are in here, the proposal with the addition of the May 15 to June 15. All nice and clear and simple. Okay, any further discussion of that? Very well, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carries. All right. Administrators reports.
All right, thank you for your guidance on that and talking through that policy. I do have a slightly different personnel report than the one that went out with the agendas. Just one small change on there I realized was missed on the first one, so.
Yeah.
So for the personnel report, we didn't have, initially, I didn't think we had any, notices of people leaving, but then I realized that last time that we had met, I was aware that Mark Janren was going to be retiring, but it wasn't on the agenda for the committee last month, so that's why that's the addition here. So that's the only person, who has let us know that they were gonna separate, that the committee wasn't aware of yet. So that gives us two, positions under request permission to refill. The first one, top there being the conservation specialist. We had initially listed that as on hold while we were looking at the positions in the planning and water department, and then the vacant court security officer. So if the committee has questions, I'd be happy to address those. Otherwise, those are the two that we're requesting.
So the court security officer, that's all he does is the court.
Correct. I mean, he's also our backup doing transports, anything auxiliary to the jail. So he has a little bit of flexibility.
Okay.
So is he gonna go be officiating on a full-time basis then?
Or part-time,
Oh, Mark, yeah, I don't know what his retirement date is. I don't know.
is this a part-time position when court is in session or a full-time position?
Full-time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, how many hours a day does he have to be in the courtroom on average?
It depends on the hearing. Sometimes it goes late. If it's a, civil or family, it could, go into the evening, it's jury trial. And then other times, the judge is gone and court's just not in session. That's again when he's able to float into other, duties. Did
he retire already?
Just after the new year, so he retired in January. So we've got some time to get this posted, and with our, with our current staff, and we may or we may not even be able to fill it in January. I would like to, but from where we're standing, we may end up having to do some backfilling till we get whole enough to actually backfill it. We're still in a pretty tight predicament in regards to staffing. So my hope is to get somebody in there, let's say December, allow for some dovetail. But I'm gonna be lucky if I can get, the flexibility. We'll probably post it, interview for it, hire to it, but I may not have the flexibility to pull that person into it. They may have to stay in their current role until I get staffing, until I can plug them. In the meantime, we've backfilled that with everything from investigators to various jail staff, and even sometimes our command staff will backfill if the court's in session, we need to have a body in that courtroom. So it could be interesting.
Is that easier or more difficult to fill than your other positions?
Typically easy. It's a Monday through Friday. So that's sort of.
8 to 5,
Yeah.
that probably helps quite a bit, huh? Yeah. And as long as you got somebody that doesn't mind sitting in the same spot.
Right, it does take a certain person, just like all of our duties, it takes a certain skill.
I would think it would be quite fascinating sitting in on all those hearings, of course. Yeah. Of course, I'd probably miss all the security stuff. You're supposed to be watching. I'm sorry, I was listening.
Yeah, we're seeing attention.
Okay,
We need a motion to authorize.
yes, we do. Sorry, we got off track.
Authorize the administrator to refill the conservation specialist position and the court security officer position.
Second by Supervisor Baker. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Very good. And then the recruitment, you're still on the recruitment phase for those. Okay.
We're very busy with recruitment right now. Most of those have a number of candidates in the pool, and we're working on interviews.
Okay, very good. So our next, did you have anything else?
I do not.
Okay, so then we go to our next meeting, which is a little tricky because county board is on November 4th, which is a Monday. And that had to be because there's something going on in the clerk's office in November. When do we wish to meet? We could do November 11th. At our regular 6 o'clock time. Okay.
Veterans Day, of course, that's what it's supposed.
Okay,
So
All right.
the 11th.
yep, 11, 6 o'clock. Okay, your motion to adjourn? I'll make it. Poppy and second by Augustine, here we go. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.